Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into a story that, well, it kind of messed with people's heads online a few years back. It's one that really blurred the lines between what's real and what might be, carefully made up. We're not just laying out facts here. We're telling a story, a really captivating one from the weirder side of the internet. So if you were paying attention to social media maybe around 2017, you probably remember this sort of explosion of new horror stories popping up. Twitter was huge for this. And right at the top, the one everyone seemed to be talking about was this chilling story called Dear David. It came from an illustrator, a guy named Adam Ellis.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about Dear David, it's not just the spooky story itself, right? It's the whole phenomenon it became. So our kind of mission today is to step back from the narrative itself and look at that. How did something that seemed, pretty subtle at first just blow up into this global thing? And, what does that tell us about storytelling now? About how audiences get hooked? It's almost like a masterclass in building a story today.
Okay, so let's get into the story itself. When Adam's Dear David thing first started, it felt familiar. Like classic ghost story stuff, nightmares, sleep paralysis, hearing weird noises when you're alone, definitely creepy stuff. But
sure.
Initially, you could maybe chalk it up to paranoia, right? Or just overactive imagination, even though it's genuinely unsettling. But then, okay, this is where it really takes a turn. Over the months, things escalated, like way beyond what anyone really expected. It wasn't just nightmares anymore. Suddenly we're seeing videos of his cats acting really strange, then objects moving on their own. And the big one, the real payoff, actual photographs of the ghost child, of David.
And that progression, that escalation, it feels, too neat, doesn't it? Too structured, maybe, for just coincidence or paranoia. I mean, the original analysis, when people first really dug into it, noted the story had been going since August of the previous year. To keep that going with that level of detail, it clearly took some thought, some planning to pull off. That structure is really key to understanding its impact.
Yeah, exactly. And that level of detail, the planning, it makes you look at the person behind it, right? Adam Ellis. He wasn't just some random guy tweeting scary stuff. He was already known. He did webcomics. He worked for BuzzFeed. In fact, he actually wrote an article for BuzzFeed around the time David supposedly first appeared.
Right.
So his background as an illustrator immediately got people thinking, hang on, does this guy have the skills to create those photos, those really famous, creepy photos of David? And you got to admit, those pictures, they definitely hit the creepy mark. They worked.
Which leads to the obvious question. Were they created? And if so, how? Well, someone actually hired a private investigator, and this investigator analyzed one of the key photos using, specialized software. And what they found was pretty strong evidence of digital manipulation. Basically, it looked like David, the figure, was added in, like a separate layer. And there were signs that someone tried to blend him into the background digitally. It created this kind of telltale halo effect, a sort of glow around the figure.
Trying to hide something?
Kind of. Think of it like trying to blend a Band-Aid into your skin with makeup. That sort of blurry edge where the makeup is, that's like the glow they saw. It's a pretty common sign of using blending tools and software like Photoshop. So, it strongly suggested Photoshop. But, it's also possible it was a physical prop, like a doll or something. Or maybe even a mix of both techniques. And given Adam's job, his creative skills, his network, it wouldn't exactly be a huge stretch for him to pull something like that off.
Okay, so that's pretty compelling evidence pointing towards it being fiction. But, some people might say, okay, even if it was Photoshopped, the story still felt real to a lot of people. Does knowing it might be fake ruin the impact? Or is it just like a different kind of art?
That's a great point.
There's another potential angle here, right? Beyond just his skills, was there another motivation? Adam Ellis is also a published author. And he had been teasing a new book release for 2018 around that time. Now, he's acknowledged that, obviously. But he strongly denied that Dear David was just some big PR stunt for the book.
Yeah, and that's always hard to prove definitively, isn't it? The motivation thing. But maybe we can get some perspective by looking at a similar case. Remember that story about Manuel and his tweets?
Oh, yeah, vaguely. What was that one again?
So Manuel's on vacation, staying in a hotel. Things start getting weird. He hears his door open one night, checks it out, and there's this tall, skinny man just standing in his room.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the man seemed really nervous, disoriented. When he spoke, it was apparently Spanish, but the words were in the wrong order. And here's a creepy detail. Manuel noticed the guy was holding a hotel key card, just like the one I used to enter my room.
Okay, that's unsettling.
Right. And then other weird stuff happened, like finding a pencil on the floor later and a message written with it. Basically, think Dear David, but swap the ghost child for more of a, creepy stalker figure.
Okay, gotcha. Now, Memo's story. Looking back, it was, let's be honest, pretty obviously staged. But the key thing was, people found it really entertaining, really enjoyable, and the impact was huge. His Twitter followers apparently jumped from around 15,000 to over 300,000 in just a week.
Wow.
And what happened after? Did he ever admit it was staged? Yeah, he was actually really open about it afterwards, gave interviews and stuff. He explained it wasn't fully scripted from the start, but more semi-improvised.
Yeah.
He had a general idea and a time frame.
Yeah.
And he said his goal, his exact words were, to have a good time telling a story in a different format and in a different medium. And when it finished, the hashtag thanks manual was trending in Spain. People were genuinely thanking him for the ride.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He even said people wrote to him saying his story inspired them to try telling their own stories in new ways.
See, Manuel's case really highlights something important, I think. For a lot of the audience today, maybe strict authenticity isn't the only thing that matters. It's the entertainment, the interactive experience. That's what pulls people in, even if they suspect it's staged.
Right.
So it makes it seem entirely possible, likely even, that Dear David was something similar. A creative story, maybe partly improvised, told using this, untraditional medium, social media.
And Twitter is just... it's perfect for this kind of thing, isn't it?
Totally.
It lets you follow along almost in real time as it's happening. It feeds you little bits of information, builds suspense. It's brilliant for cliffhangers.
Yeah.
And Adam really mastered that. He'd give us information in these threads, right? He created this rhythm. His posts felt systematic. They'd start kind of soft, hint that more weird stuff happened, then go deeper and deeper until, boom, you get a big payoff. Like a video or one of those photos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He chose to make it a slow burn. That's a term from horror movies, right? It's where you build atmosphere, focus on characters and pacing, instead of just relying on, quick jump scares.
Right, we'll build the dread.
Yeah. He gave the audience just enough to nibble on each time, kept raising the stakes, kept people hooked, waiting for the next update.
So, putting this all together, all the evidence, the context, it seems pretty likely that Dear David might just be, a work of fiction.
And you know what? Maybe that isn't such a bad thing. Maybe we should just appreciate it for the story it was. Enjoy the craft that went into it while it was happening.
A new form of storytelling.
Yeah, it really shows the power of a well-told story, doesn't it? Regardless of whether it's real in the traditional sense.
It did feel like the story was maybe wrapping up around the time people were analyzing it heavily. But I guess ultimately we just had to wait and see how Adam chose to end it. So look, whether Dear David was a genuine haunting captured tweet by tweet or a really cleverly crafted piece of digital fiction, the phenomenon itself is undeniable. It's this powerful example of how platforms like Twitter can be used for totally new kinds of storytelling, structured, engaging, incredibly immersive.
Absolutely. It was a masterclass in building that suspense and just holding audience captive, one little update at a time.
Sure.
And if you step back and think about the bigger picture here, it does raise some interesting questions, right? Like, what does it mean for storytelling when that line between reality and carefully crafted fiction gets so incredibly blurry on social media? How does that change our role as the audience? Are we participants, detectives, just consumers?
Good question.
And it makes you wonder, what other stories are out there right now waiting to be found? Or maybe waiting for someone to create the next big thing.
Definitely something to think about. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the whole Dear David saga. We hope it maybe encourages you to look at these kinds of online stories in a new light. And hey, if you're enjoying this conversation, please do like, share, and subscribe to the show. It really helps us out. We'll catch you next time when we dive deep into another fascinating new topic.